So the thing is that Orthodoxy kind of like the thing with Orthodoxy that I've discovered is that it's very much not of this world. Like if you're the intellectual type, you'll find yourself stumbling upon either Catholicism or Orthodoxy. That's pretty much, unless you're like really autistic, then like you'll probably be Protestant. Like, yeah, Orthodoxy is just very much separate from the rest of the world. It's its own fucking thing. Eastern Orthodoxy and Oriental Orthodoxy very much exist. Even the Assyrian Church of the East, they all exist within a vacuum. With Protestantism and with Catholicism, we have presuppositions, right? That doesn't mold right with Orthodoxy, because Orthodoxy, despite having national churches, anti-nationalism. In today's episode, I want to talk about my little experience that I had at the Orthodox Church, and basically why I don't believe Catholicism. Now, again, that could change at any time in my life. I've said before that if I ever did change, I was gonna say if I ever did change ethnicities, if I ever did change religion, it would be Eastern Orthodoxy, right? Because when you study Christianity, you're gonna fall on either Roman Catholicism or Eastern Orthodoxy, right? And then, if you're autistic, maybe a traditional historical Protestantism, right? So the thing with that is I found myself, because I'm very like what's the word, somebody that always wants to keep learning, intuitive. I'm very intuitive, right? I always want to keep learning and learning and learning and learning, because when I read or when I study something, I want to know everything about it, right? I can't just sit here and drink Pure Life water and not know where my water comes from, where the plastics are sourced, the company that fucking makes it, the company that owns that company, what motives they have, right? So recently this year, I decided to put my money where my mouth is, and I decided I'm going to check out this Orthodox Church. So me and my good friend, Franklin K. Side, we had seen on Voice of Reason's channel, he was promoting Byzantine Catholicism, right? Which basically are the Orthodox churches that came back into communion with the Pope, right? So they accept Roman Catholic teaching, but they follow their own theology and their own tradition. So in one of his videos, he went to like a conference, right? And he met this father who's out in Homer Glen, Illinois. And I was like, oh, hey, look, there's this Byzantine church over here. So he said, let's go check out this Byzantine church, right? I'm like, okay, let's go. So we went, and the moment I stepped into the doors, you get hit with incense, right? You get hit with Byzantine iconography. You get hit with Catholic stuff too, like the Virgin of Guadalupe, Padre Pio, statues, rosaries. So it's like, it was a little different, but it wasn't so like alien either, right? And I fell in love with the Eastern expression of the faith. Soon as I stepped into that church, I was like, yup, this is it. I like it. Now, as I've continued to study theology and try to learn more, there's certain things that Rome teaches that I don't completely agree with, right? Now, do I know enough about Catholic theology to make like a firm statement? No, not really. I think I know more than the average person, but I don't know enough to where it's like, yeah, like I can tell you who Justin Martyr was and where he was from. I know who Justin Martyr, I know he's a saint, but I can't sit here and tell you what he taught. I can't sit here and tell you what Saint Athanasius or Irenaeus or Ignatius, any of these people, right? I know a little bit, but not enough to where I can say confidently, I know what they're saying. I know what they're teaching. So, whatever. Like I said, I've had my little bones to pick with Catholicism, not just in terms of theology, but just in terms of like dealing with the people, right? And finally, I decided for Lent, I was like, you know what? I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and go full throttle with the East, right? Because, and it's not, I'm not trying to insult anyone in particular, but a lot of the people that become, not that they're born into it, but a lot of the people that become Byzantine Catholic, it just feels like a LARP. If I'm being completely transparent, to me, it just looks like they're LARPing. They're trying to LARP as Byzantine bros. They're trying to LARP as Emperor Justinian. They're trying to LARP as Constantine. They're trying to... It feels like a LARP. I'm not saying it is a LARP, but it feels like that. And because, they fall in love with the incense, the icons, the prayer robe, the asceticism. They fall in love with the Eastern expression of the faith, which is beautiful, that's fine, but part of it does feel like a LARP. It's the same thing like with the guys that have the Knights Templar. I know I'm a hypocrite, but they have the Knights Templar stuff in their house, and they're all big on, Templar. It's like, never again in history are we ever going to have a Knight Templar ever again. Right? We're never going to have crusades. Maybe not never, but we'll probably never have another crusade. The closest we'll ever get to having the Knights Templar is the Knights of Columbus, right? So, whatever. So I decided, okay, I'm going to check out this church and see what it's like. I went inside, so I was already somewhat familiar with their liturgy, which is the liturgy of St. John Chrysostom, right? Because that's what the Byzantine Church, that's the liturgy that they practice, right? So I was already familiar with some of it. But it was different. It's a lot more standing. It's a lot more they speak in 3 different languages. The one that I was at, they spoke English, Greek, and Spanish when they were doing the chants. No statues, no rosaries, no popish nonsense, none of that. So yeah, that was different. But I was, like I said, I had already visited the Byzantine Catholic Church closest to where I live, and I was like, I was pretty familiar. It wasn't that alien. It was just little things were different. But the priest went up to me because he noticed me. I was new face. He was like, "Oh, well, he's different." He went up to me. He talked to me. He was a very, very nice guy. Very, very humble. Very knowledgeable. And towards the end of the service, or not the end of the beginning of the service, he asked me if I could stay after, and I'm like, okay, I'll stay. So I stayed. Whatever. We spoke a little bit, and as we began to speak, I went 2 times to the church, and everyone there was super nice, super welcoming. It was a very pleasant experience, right? But the more we talked, the more I started to realize, and maybe I'm the problem, I'll acknowledge that, but the more I started to realize, ideologically speaking, I don't think I could get on board with Orthodoxy. Because Orthodoxy is very much like anti-world, right? It's like, it doesn't matter. The way they look at, let's say, like abortion, right, is you, the viewer, it doesn't matter what the law says. It matters what you do. It doesn't matter what Cindy does. It matters what you do. You're the one. You should not be getting an abortion. You should be having sex within the confines of marriage and create children, right? But that's there's nothing wrong with that. But Catholics, we're the ones that overturned Roe v. Wade, right? So the Orthodox have this attitude of like separating themselves from the world, which I understand. I understand the reason why they do it, but they're very different in the way that they view the world, and they're very different in the way that they view politics, personal life, everything, right? From what I understand, they're anti-nationalists. Now, I know Catholicism is anti-nationalist too, but they're very different from like Catholics in the sense that they don't get involved. They don't do evangelization. They don't I think they do charity. I'm not gonna say they don't do charity, but they're just ideologically divorced from the West, right? Our Western civilization was formed by Roman law. Okay, the way the Frankists, not Candace Owens Frankists, talking about the Franks from the French, Germanics, the Latins, we have a separate worldview, right, from the rest of the world. Okay, we're legalistic, we're very judicial, right? You have to pay your penance. But the Orthodox are more like, we're always in penance, right? We're always paying for penance. Like, they're very philosophical. They're very mystical in the way that they view Christ and the way that they view the world, right? We're very like, I need this. I need that. I need to know everything that's going on. I need to make sure that I have all my T's crossed and my I's dotted. They're like, well, we don't know. We know that God, He is the Trinity, and He died for us to be with Him in heaven. But we get real like Catholics and Protestants. We get real nitpicky. We get real like, well, let's see. So if God says that the Eucharist becomes, He is the Eucharist, that must mean that the Eucharist physically becomes Him. But how do we explain it? Well, there's the process of transubstantiation, and this exists because when you look at modern day science and the way we study the Eucharist, that the living cells exist within blessed Eucharist, and they don't. We get very technical. They don't. They're just like, we bless the Eucharist, and it becomes God. That's all we know, because this is the tradition that's been taught to us by the disciples. Now that I think about it, now that I come to think about it, I could probably, ideologically speaking, see myself becoming Protestant before Orthodox. Because, like I said, the way that they view the world and everything is just so separate from the way we view the world. And I believe the West is the best, right? I'm a Western chauvinist. Obviously I believe in America first, if you guys watched the pod. But I don't see myself ideologically lining with the Orthodox ever, because I don't believe that we should try to like escape the world. We need to go into the world. We need to go into the institutions. We need to, if you believe in America first, okay? Excuse me. If you believe in America first, right? What does Nick say? Get into the institutions, gain influence, get your money up, all that. But the Orthodox are very much like, well, we know that our reward is with Jesus in heaven. And it's like, we know that too. But guess what? You're sitting there, watch the world go by, and no, we need to involve ourselves in the institutions. We need to involve ourselves in government. We can't just sit there and keep saying, oh no, but don't do what those guys do. No, we need to go and evangelize. We need to go and involve ourselves in the institutions. And I do believe in America first. I might have my own little like nitpicky things that I believe, but I do believe in America first. I believe in I as a Catholic, I'm praying for the Protestants, for the Reconquista, because Redeem Zoomer, he's leading this little movement of involving or getting these traditional Protestants to stay within the traditional mainline churches, so that they can go back to tradition, go back to the tradition of the Protestant churches, not have all this crazy woke stuff, right? And that's like, even though I'm not a Protestant, that is something that I identify with. I'm like, no, we can't sit here and run away and stay away from the world. No, we need to get involved. We need to bring order and balance. God didn't give us the gift of intellectualism. just to throw it away. That's not saying that Eastern theology or Eastern expression isn't valid. It's equally as valid as our Western expression. But we can't just sit around and not do anything. We need to go out there and get involved. We can't just go on some mountain and pray that one day things get better. Noah didn't build the ark on faith alone. He didn't build the ark by just praying all day. No, I mean, he prayed, yes, but he put in the work to do what he did to build what he built. The disciples went into the cities. They didn't go, we're from Chicago. They didn't go into St. Charles to go preach the gospel. They didn't go into Sandwich to go preach the gospel. They went into the heart of Chicago. They went to Trump Tower to go in the Sears Tower and the Water Tower and the Bear Stadium and the Sox Stadium to go preach the gospel. They didn't go out to some way out. No, they were in the institutions. They got in the institutions and they changed the world. I wouldn't be speaking English right now if the Christians just went off into the caves and did nothing. There were Christians that did that, and they taught many great things. And God bless them. God bless their souls, I haven't started reading it yet, but I got to book on the Desert Fathers. Yeah, monasticism is great. I love it, but if we want to see change in this country, in the West, and in the kingdom, right? The kingdom of heaven, of God, we need to be out there and make those changes ourselves. Yeah, we're going to fall flat. Yeah, we're going to do a lot of dumb stuff we shouldn't be doing, but we still need to be out there and try to make the changes. I'm not the type of guy who's going to run around with a cross and a Bible, but if someone asks me who I believe in, I'm going to say I believe in Jesus Christ. If they say, well, why do you believe in Jesus? Because he's the truth, the light, the first and the last. I'm not going to run away. Not saying that all Orthodox people run away, but when I see these pro-life protests, I don't see no Orthodox out there. I don't see no Oriental Orthodox out there. I see Catholics and evangelicals on the front lines defending life, defending these people, the unborn children, right? So, like I said, it's not that I'll never be Orthodox. I'll always have a love, and I'll always admire, right, the Eastern expression of the faith, whether it's Byzantine Catholicism or Eastern Orthodoxy. But I truly do believe all roads lead back to Rome. And I think Rome is going to be my home for a while. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say. I didn't have a bad experience with the Orthodox Church. Just my experience showed me that ideologically speaking, I just can't get along with. Not get along, but I can't. I can't do it, right? And according to Catholic theology, I can follow I can believe in Eastern theology and still be Catholic and still be saved. So, as far as I'm concerned, I know I'm good with God. Are you good with God? Who knows? See you guys in the next one. Goodbye.